The worst year for a lot of us for our mental as well as physical health. So joining us this morning is best-selling author, coach, and fitness expert, Lisa Goldenthal.
Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa G, your host. You're at the top of your game, yet the game is changing faster than ever. Strategies that got you here aren't the ones that'll keep you here. The pressure is relentless, and the fear of obsolescence looms large. That's why I'm here. Welcome to the new podcast series, Disrupted: How to Be Gritty and Unlock Performance. This is your chance where I sit down with today's tops in business, mindset, wellness, and success to help you master disruption and thrive.
Thanks for coming, and we'll see you soon.
She's an innovator who has revolutionized healthcare content creation. Her unique approach to business, centered on kindness and personal development, has not only transformed workplaces, but also empowered teams to achieve unprecedented success. She speaks to various industries, not just healthcare, and is the author of the upcoming book, Your Cultural Balance Sheet: Keys to Creating an Environment Where People Can Thrive. I absolutely love that topic, and I'm so excited to welcome to the podcast, Christy Pretzinger.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I want to jump into, you said that you are driven by kindness, and I'm guessing you didn't always work for kind people. So why are you driven by kindness?
That's an interesting question. And someone asked it of me for the first time just recently. And I was like, oh, because they said kind of what you just did you work for unkind people? And I said, interestingly, no, I really did not work for unkind people. But the structures within which they worked didn't foster kindness. And so that actually, in hindsight, I can look at that and say, that is why my organization is structured the way that it is, why kindness is one of our core values, and that it's actually worked out very well.
Well, I'm a big believer in that, as far as like all the problems that people are seeing right now, quitting, disengagement. So I think building from the ground up to be focused on kindness will help you in that regard. And what about self-awareness in leadership? How important is that?
I really believe that the importance of self-awareness cannot be overestimated. In my own experience, when I had a coach many years ago, probably about 12 years ago, tell me that your business is you and you are your business, and it won't grow until you do. The business was quite a bit smaller at the time. And so what I did when I heard that is I started a daily meditation practice, and I started learning about the Enneagram, which my organization uses as a personality typing tool. And that one actually looks at motivation for behavior as opposed to just behavior. So it teaches you learn about yourself. And also, because it's in its simplest form, there's only 9 personality types. So it gives you an opportunity to learn about the behaviors and the motivations for the other 9, which takes you out of your own head and puts you into an empathetic spot. So when you're dealing with someone who is behaving in a way that is different or irritating to you, if you have some understanding of their motivation, it lays the groundwork for empathy. So you realize they're not doing that to irritate you. They're doing it because that's the way they process information or whatever. So anyway, when I learned about the Enneagram and I started reading a lot of books, not really business books. I mean, I sprinkled some in there, but really the ones that were most impactful to me were books that were focused on personal development with an emphasis on self-awareness. And that was the first time that my business hit $1 million in revenue, was when I started doing that kind of work.
Wow, I think it's such an important part of emotional intelligence is first self-awareness and all of the different personality types that you're dealing with. It sounds like that's such a great way to come at it from the empathy piece, where not everybody processes the information the way that you do. So instead of trying to blame others or react to them, I think it's so good to understand other people. So I love the work you're doing. And I want to talk also about the importance of intention and attention in building trust or anything really long term. Do you
Yeah.
want to talk about that one too?
That's really interesting. That's something that I talk about a lot is that you have to have both intention and then give attention to your intention, or else nothing will happen. And what's interesting is that in recent years and all of the more brain science that is coming out, talking about, the functional MRIs and understanding neuroplasticity and things like that, and the actual physical way in which we embed things into our subconscious is by having an intention, usually tying it to an emotion, which makes it important to your subconscious to embed in there. And then you give attention to it over and over again. And your conscious mind will become like a bloodhound and look for things that tie into that thing that you've embedded into your subconscious. So it's interesting that I've always thought that and always believed that. And then to read about it in brain science, I'm like, oh, well, that's really interesting. So I think that when it comes to something like trust, that I think most of us would understand as leaders that trust is a long game, right? That you can say something, but people don't really believe you until they see you put, like I usually say, put wings to your words, that you really mean what you're saying. And
Yeah.
then you lose trust so quickly, just by like, for example, back to the Enneagram. I know that as a leader, I have to be very careful to moderate the way that I speak with certain people because I can get kind of fast talking and I can sound rather directive, and that can just shut other people down. So they can't process mentally or physically. And I know that I have to moderate that behavior. And if I don't moderate that behavior, it damages the relationship between us, which then chips away at the trust.
I love all of those things. Do you want to dive a little bit deeper into some of the science behind that about having the reticular activating system activated where you are tying something, an emotion to your intention and just get a little bit more into the science behind how that actually
Yeah.
works?
Well, and I'll tell you, it's because it's based on information I read in a book recently called Mind Magic by Dr. James Doty, Doty. I'll send you a link for that, and you can put it in your show notes. It's a wonderful book, and he is a neuroscientist and a neurosurgeon, and he talks about the act of manifesting from a brain perspective, not spiritual. He takes that out of it and just talks about how your brain actually works. So he goes through all of the different networks in the brain, much of which was too technical to me, but the biggest thing was that we have something called the salient network. And the word salient means important, relevant. So there's a salient network. And what happens is that he said, well, you can manifest based on, I want the car, the house, the diamonds, whatever it happens to be. But those things tend to not embed as easily. It will work in your subconscious, but what really, really fires up your brain is the tying it to an emotion, to meaning and purpose. So if you have something, so for example, for me, my purpose, the reason I want my business to grow is because I want to share this environment with more people. That's my meaning and my purpose. I want to reinvent the way people look at the world of work so that they find joy and life work balance and do meaningful work while also having a meaningful life. So that for me is my meaning and purpose. So what happens is when I tie, that growth to that meaning and purpose, what happens is that the salient network in my brain says, oh, that's important. That's important. We got to put that in our subconscious. And then what happens is that your executive function, your conscious brain, starts actually literally, these are his words, acts like a bloodhound to seek out the opportunities to make these things happen. And that is the actual process of, very simplified, by the way, but the process of manifesting from a brain perspective.
Well, I appreciate that you simplified it so that we can understand it. That's always great on such a short podcast.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to motivate your employees, how do you tie the actual mission of the company into their emotions so that they're fired up and excited? Is there a way to do that?
I think in my own experience of that, again, we use the Enneagram, so everybody is familiar with the Enneagram. We do workshops and things about it. So we're all very aware of each other's types and how they process and think about things. So on my leadership team, when I think about that, I know what drives certain kinds of behavior from people. But what the big thing for me is community. I've learned over my lifetime that there are many, but one of the common human elements is that every single person needs to know that they matter, that their hopes and dreams matter, that the things that are important to them matter, and more importantly, that the special magic that they bring to a collective would be missed if they left. I frequently say that positions are replaceable, people are not. And again, that's a trust thing. People know that I mean that, I will fire a client if they are disrespectful or hard to work with for some of my employees. So they know that I will do those things. And so to get people, in my experience, to buy into your mission, it really is, for me, casting the vision for the culture, for this environment, giving people the tools to live that out, and then bringing them along on the ride. Really, leadership isn't about pushing people, it's about lifting people up. And so really helping people do meaningful work within their own zone of genius that excites them, making sure that they are finding joy, even though sometimes work is hard, but we can make it fun. All of those kind of things together, and building relationships. Our mission is we build relationships one word at a time. And we do that with each other, we do it with our associates, and we do it with our clients and then their populations. So all of that together creates this, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And it creates kind of a coherence in the organization. And as a result, people are really happy, and we don't have a lot of turnover, which you probably know is a hidden cost on a balance sheet. You never see how much it costs for those people to leave, as an entire library walks out your door every time somebody leaves.
Yeah, it's very expensive. Rather
Yes.
than keeping them happy, that would
Yeah.
ultimately be. So you're saying that everybody has to have access to the enneagrams of the other people so that they can foster trust building conversations.
Yes. So we do workshops where we learn about the other types and see that some of us have similar ways of responding to various triggers, and other ones have completely different responses. And so when you see how two different types respond to the exact same situation, you go, oh, that's interesting, because my response is everybody has to be okay. Somebody else's response is well, I don't know, I got to question that. What's going to happen next? I need to have some guardrails. And so you can have an understanding of what's the driver for someone's behavior.
Any final words you want to leave our audience, how we can be unstoppable in leadership with kindness?
Well, the same thing I often say, that the thing that the coach shared with me 12 years ago, which is, as a leader, whether you are leading an organization that is yours, that you are the founder and CEO of, or whether you have a team, it doesn't really make any difference. If you're a leader in any capacity, your leadership will only grow as much as you do. And then you can only help the people that you lead grow by how much you yourself grow.
I'd love the focus on personal development. And where can people find more of your good stuff?
Really, you can find me on LinkedIn. And if I can ever get around to doing it, Lisa, I'm going to actually start writing things on LinkedIn. I just haven't gotten to it. So I think I'm going to start taking little sections of the book and putting it on there so people can get a taste of what's going to be coming out in November.
Well, I'm so excited to read your book, and I love the way that you lead. So thanks for being a fantastic guest on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.